We'll put a posting on the Customer FX website by the end of the day with a link to the video, so you can watch it as much as you need to. All right, Bree, am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so. Are you ready to turn it over to Eric?
Yep, that sounds good. Eric, we'll make you presenter, if you please, and we will ask you to go ahead and get started.
Great, thanks a lot. And I'm just waiting for the handoff to come over from you still.
We there?
Let's see.
There
yep,
we go.
You got it all right.
Eric, looks good. We got your full screen, so I think we're in sync here.
Great. Well, appreciate you having me in today. And what I wanted to do is just give everybody a little bit of background and just talk through quickly around what is Salesfusion, why is it an important thing for us to consider as far as it being part of the Saleslogix user community. And what I want to do is just kind of walk through I guess a couple general definitions, and Scott, you'll kind of lead me through what it is that you want me to cover off of it, of course, as well. But generally speaking, what I wanted to do is first kind of cover thinking about what is marketing automation as a definition, not always a clear-cut line as far as what is marketing automation compared to email marketing, which most people are familiar with. So in the case of Salesfusion and how we define marketing automation differently is things like SwiftPage that you're probably familiar with, SwiftPage e-marketing tool, does a great job of delivering an email message to the customer. And it gives you the ability to see whether people interacted with that email so that you all can make some decisions about whether you take action on that based on the fact that they clicked or opened. But that's really kind of the full range of scope to a great extent of what the SwiftPage tool and other e-marketing tools you may have heard of, things like Constant Contact or email. So there's SurveyMonkey and then there's Email Chimp. I always get the two confused. But there's a number of tools out there that do that. But really taking Salesfusion on as a marketing automation tool, the difference really is it's really addressing the full scope of what you're doing as a marketing organization. So looking at what's happening past the click, what's happening on my website, and what's important to visitors that are tracking my website. Can I track them? Social media is a very big deal right now and will remain a big deal for a while, I think, that we need to know not just are we able to put things out on social media, but are people interacting with those things? So really, marketing automation is looking at more than email marketing. It's looking at website traffic, return visits, lead scoring, and really tracking this lead to revenue management. So when somebody does visit our website, how long did they stay, what did they do, and how can we remarket to those individuals? So an important thing that Salesfusion always talks about is kind of the death of cold calling. And what is meant by that is by the time, studies have indicated by the time people reach out to us and say, hey, I'm interested, I'd like to talk to you about your service or your offering or your CRM application, they've already done a lot of shopping. They've already been through a lot of websites. And to a certain extent, more than 50% of the decision-making process is often already done. So to that point, we need to take a new approach towards how do we leverage website data and how do we do things with that. And that's what Salesfusion and marketing automation gives us the chance to do. Does that make sense to you, Scott, and everybody else? Anything I should add on to about that?
Makes sense. Thank you.
So what I want to do is kind of take a look at what does all this mean to the Saleslogix user. So the fact that we can go and collect a ton of data from our website, we can do email marketing campaigns, we can build lead capture forms on our website and through dialogues and social media and other locations, and we have all this visitor tracking. how does that translate into anything that really matters to me as a Saleslogix end user? So in this case, we're going to look at some of the utilities within Saleslogix to represent how those, what I call marketing performance data, ends up inside of Saleslogix. So you, as a Saleslogix customer, you as a Saleslogix user, can do something with that data and make intelligent conversations begin. So for starters, when we're in here, in this case, we're in a lead record of Kevin Miller. And down below, you'll see some additional tabs that if you don't have Salesfusion today, you won't have these. So you have web activities as a tab. We can see visits, actual visits to our website. So when this individual comes to our website, the Salesfusion tool installs what's called a persistent cookie. What that persistent cookie does is when somebody, in the guise of email marketing, someone clicks on the email and it tracks the click. In the case of Salesfusion, when that click occurs in an email or a newsletter or a survey form or something like that, it does put that cookie on the machine at that time. So what that means is now that we have a cookie on the machine, we can actually determine who that individual is and when have they been to the website, how often do they come back, and what do they do. So we can drill into any and all of these events and take a look at an individual level, what did that person do, what pages did they visit, when did they come back, and make decisions about how to treat this individual or this record. What would we like to do with that person based on their web history? The other thing that we can do here, excuse me, let me get back a screen. So when we go into the Kevin Miller record, other things that we can also do is look at when was he a target for an email event. Which events did he receive emails on? A dialogue are forms. So different forms, they can be a registration, a survey, or a questionnaire for a download for a white paper. So again, we can see their individual activity. What links have they clicked on? So we really get a lot of data about that individual, the marketing events they've been part of. So the idea is if we're fortunate enough to get that person on a phone when we're dialing for dollars, we have to say something contextually relevant pretty quickly. The thing I teach people to do is obviously not be creepy and say our website's been watching you, but really use something that they've recently done on your website in conversation. So for example, if we send them a newsletter, we might call and say, hey, we're following up the newsletter, and I wanted to follow up with you about that one story that we had about Saleslogix analytics. Well, it just so happens that we see through their web history that they've clicked on the news article about analytics and they spent some time reading that. So therefore, of the 7 articles that are in the newsletter, we'd like to hook into the one that they read. So the idea is using this data in these different tabs, we can have a contextually based conversation based on something they've done or behavior that they've demonstrated through our website. Any questions about that?
Okay. So far, Eric.
So another thing that we also want to see is now that we've seen this data is actually pumped up into tabs within Saleslogix, that means it's in the Saleslogix data store. It means that we can do intelligent things with this data, like build groups. The other thing that we have as part of the Salesfusion dashboard here is when we're looking at the Saleslogix interface, we can click the Salesfusion dashboard, and what that does is it actually opens up an iframe of within the Salesfusion application. So we have another way of looking at this data that we were previously looking at in Saleslogix tabs. We have some graphics. We can click down onto the most recent visit to our website, and when we click down on that, we can see again another way of viewing the data, seeing what website pages were visited. Was this the entry page? Was it the exit page? How long did they stay? And various other attributes about that data. Web history is another way of looking at a linear time, kind of like we look at notes history in Saleslogix. And sent emails are emails that the marketing engine has sent that individual. And again, if we go over here under the action, we can do a pop-up and take a look at what does the content of that email look like. So when we are on the phone, we can have a conversation saying, oh, by the way, you received the email. And if I'm not familiar with all of the templates marketing's using, I'm probably not going to be, I can at least get a read on what the template looks like so that I, again, can use that in conversation. Probably my next favorite feature here is when I look at an individual record, I want to, again, leveraging the power of this tool and leveraging the skill of marketing. Our marketing team makes these great templates. They brand the product. They build the language around what we want to do as a company. And I, as an end user, want to be able to send a nice branded piece of literature. I don't want to have to think about how to write an email about a certain function within our product line. So in here, marketing can turn loose to Saleslogix end users templates. In this case, you see this user only has access to 2. And by inserting the template, I can now take a template that marketing releases to the sales team and send it to an individual in a one-off capacity. So that enables me to leverage the skills and capabilities of the marketing team. They get to brand the message. I get to send a nice, pretty email without thinking much about it. And again, the other way this is used is if that person is not yet cookied and we're not traffic tracking them through the website, we may want to send them something that has a link to a video that would compel them to drill in. So some organizations I've worked with in the past use this compose email kind of as the initial email to get them moving into and through the marketing engine. Because the next thing that happens with Salesfusion is trigger marketing. So under lead scoring, there's a capability in here called trigger marketing. So you all probably know what nurture marketing means at this point. But what I mean by trigger marketing is when somebody reads this email, if they go down here for download the white paper, we can make a decision as a marketing organization that if they download the white paper, that means they're interested in this certain product line or vertical space. Therefore, Salesfusion can be watching their personal behavior, and based on lead scoring models and or downloads of white papers, it can actually drop them into or trigger a nurture marketing campaign based on their web behavior or their interaction with an email document. So that's the next piece behind why would we use this. If you notice over here, we do have a scoring summary which tracks more about their personal profile. So a couple things that's interesting too when it comes to lead scoring is we can actually have lead scoring at a contact level against multiple scoring profiles. So for instance, we can have a web page visit scoring profile for an individual. We can also have a nurture marketing or newsletter scoring profile, and we can have a social profile for them. And based on those different scores, we can then draw them into marketing campaigns or determine based on their previous behavior what is it we'd like to do with that record. So again, as I mentioned at the top, really when you look at things like SwiftPage or ExactTarget or other email marketing engines, really what they do is they track to the click and only that, whereas this tool is tracking the entire web activity and helping you all make smart marketing decisions based on that. The next thing here we have distribution lists. Distribution lists is I want to register people to our monthly newsletter, or I want to send them on the seed list, or whatever it is, the different attributes that we want to add as distribution lists. This is a way of kind of building a one-off interaction where when I'm talking to somebody and they say, yeah, you guys ever do a newsletter? Well, why don't you get me on the newsletter list? Well, I can do that right here. And that way, next time marketing comes through to send the newsletter, I've added this individual to a distribution list or see that they're already on it before, rather than adding them into it. And then also we have landing pages. Again, landing pages can be many different things. A landing page can be a contact me form on your website. It can be in front of download a white paper, give me your name and address, or your name and email address and phone number. So that can be a landing page. Also, we can push landing pages out through our email marketing efforts, to turn our email marketing efforts into survey forms and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that we can do with landing pages. But really, at the end of the day, what it all means is we now have access to marketing tools, and really the disconnect up until now has been a lot of people are doing things in the marketing department, but the sales end users don't have a line of sight or visibility of that actual marketing performance data. When do they come to my website? What survey forms have they filled out? Are they targets for different email campaigns? Have they attended or registered to events? And when do they come to the website? How often? And when they do come to our website, what do they do there? How long have they stayed? So in a nutshell, that's really what it boils down to, is Salesfusion really takes far beyond the click and through the entire web experience, including into social media and other realms that are important to business today.
Eric, some of the other things I really like about Salesfusion, especially compared to SwiftPage eMarketing, is that every Saleslogix user is a Salesfusion user. And in contrast to that, with the SwiftPage eMarketing package, I, as a Saleslogix user, cannot initiate an email to anybody. The only thing I can do is add one of my contacts to a group, and then somebody in marketing who is a SwiftPage user has to upload that to SwiftPage and hopefully get the email out the door. So like you said, it's one of your favorite features, and I can see that being really valuable to me, is that I may be talking to somebody, a prospect, and they mention, some Saleslogix add-on or feature that's really important to them. Right on the fly, I can go ahead and send them a template email from me rather than from, marketing@customerfx.com. So I can initiate a personal interaction using very high quality templates that my marketing team created for me. I think that's fabulous. Some of the other things that I like is, and in contrast again to SwiftPage eMarketing, is if somebody unsubscribes from anything you ever send to them, regardless if it's an announcement or a solicitation or product information, if they unsubscribe from SwiftPage eMarketing, that's a blanket unsubscribe. They will never receive any communications from you again, where Salesfusion allows them to opt out to just the marketing piece that you sent them. It's not global. And so even though they may have no interest in, Saleslogix Mobile or whatever it is, it doesn't mean they'll never get another email from me, which I think, again, is the way it should be.
Agreed, yeah. That's a great point. And another piece about that, too, is when we look at this individual and their scoring profile, when we look at who they are and when they've received things, sometimes what happens, and to your point about the email marketing piece and composing an email, I worked with an organization that they are a furniture company. When people come in and visit their showroom floor using Saleslogix Mobile, they're adding that contact in, and they're interacting with them while they're walking the floor and taking some notes about what they're doing and what they're interested in, profiling the rooms in their house and so forth. When they leave and that sales rep has a chance to sit down at their desk again, they've saved that individual, and they will literally send them a thanks for visiting the showroom floor. If you come back next Saturday using this branded piece of material, they can send out a very quick email to that individual that's beautiful, it's written, it's branded. And the other piece of the idea here is also part of it is we want to put something interaction in here. That's how we get that actual cookie onto that machine so that we can traffic track them next time they come back to the website. The key point about that is this. Salesfusion tracks all activity through our website, not just Saleslogix people. So in addition to the feature set we talked about so far, when we go into the Salesfusion interface, that's what this looks like. We can see all traffic that comes through our website, and how did they get here? Through search engines, through organically typing our URL, or from external links like newsletters, social media blogs, other places where they might be able to find a link to our website. So we get to see a little more about the performance metrics of how are people ending up on our website in the first place. Secondly, it does track them, or at least their URL, origination URL of how they got to our website. If they fill out a form, it has tracked that visitor before they're cookied, and once they're cookied, it will actually backfill their history. So if they were on our website 4 or 5 times before filling out the Contact Me form, we actually take benefit of the previous 5 visits through Salesfusion. It tracks that and then backfills them in and says, not only did they fill out the form on today, but they came 3 other days previously, and here's their previous history before filling out the form. A couple other things here is this is showing us our website performance. What are the most popular pages on our website? So we can see what pages people are visiting the most. We can go into the marketing assets piece and find out all about all the different things that we can do using this tool. So really the marketing team ends up living in this interface quite a bit. A couple other things too I'd mention that's important is Salesfusion has the ability to do segmentations. Segmentations is analogous to a Saleslogix group, but the difference is, again, we've been comparing kind of what SwiftPage does in comparison to Salesfusion today. SwiftPage, when you go in and build a marketing campaign, you build a target list. And once you build a target list and hit launch that campaign, it takes that target list and pushes it up to SwiftPage so that you can send out the e-marketing. Conversely, what happens in the case of Salesfusion is it grabs your entire database, and then you have the ability through segmentations to effectively build groups. So it captures and copies your Saleslogix database over to the integration here using the SData connector. And then within this interface, the marketing team can come in here and build their own segmentations based on custom fields or standard Saleslogix fields. They can go in here and build a segmentation, which is pretty much the same as building a group in Saleslogix, except for it's living within the Salesfusion front end. We mentioned triggers and drips. Triggers are really just a way of invoking drip marketing. A couple other things that are important to me that I've looked at before is shortened URLs. So I've mentioned several times social media tracking. What Salesfusion does is it will enable you to build shortened URLs, and then you can track those through Saleslogix and through Salesfusion. So what I mean here is we can go here to the landing pages and call it itty bitty is what is called a shortened URL. In this case, I took a long URL, salesfusion.com/blog/marketing-manager, and I shortened that URL to Marketing 101 was the name of this URL. Once I take a long URL from a blog site or a press release or from a third-party site like CRM Today with our launch of our new X-Bar for Saleslogix, we had some very good press coverages, and we wanted to send them out. So once we build that long URL here, I can go over to here and say social publishing. So through the social publishing front end, I can take that shortened URL that I call ittybitty.May 2014. I can put a subject line in it, and I can push it out to LinkedIn or Twitter. And the advantage is not that I couldn't do that before using other tools. The advantage is now I can track the interaction with that. So when I go to the social dashboard and the itty-bitty dashboards, I can tell of the posts that I made on LinkedIn or Twitter how much traffic is coming back through those URLs. Are people going and watching the videos or reading the press release? So that I know marketing performance data, again, about social media by tracking these itty-bitties. Scott, you have questions about that? Or should I talk about QR codes for a second?
Go ahead and go to QR. I think we're good on the tiny URL. I use them all the time.
Yeah, and a lot of people do. The difference is most people are paying a service to create them, where it's all part of Salesfusion. And we'll get to the value proposition about that in a second. QR codes is also interesting. Some people are skeptical about their purpose or function, but I think more and more people are using smartphones. QR codes are getting used more and more. QR codes really function pretty much like an itty-bitty in that you get to embed a long URL and then make your postage stamp QR code. How do people use them? You can jump to a link on a web page. If you're a manufacturing company, I've been suggesting to a lot of folks, in Salesfusion, you can make a landing page, which would be a questionnaire or a lead form or product registration form. And when you get to that product registration form, you can build it into a QR code and stick the sticker right on the side of the box. So when people get your product, they can go right to the QR, click on it, and what that will do is it'll register that individual through the QR code, through the custom landing page built here in Salesfusion, and put that contact directly into Saleslogix. And then what can you do? Because they came in through that QR code, you know what product they own. If you know what product they own, you know which nurture marketing program to drop them into. What's next? What would you like me to cover, Scott?
Do you want to touch on events quick before we start fielding some questions that have come in?
I can. Events. So within the Salesfusion tool, there is an events marketing module. Event marketing module will help integrate into both online events and face-to-face events. So if we have GoToMeeting or WebEx, you can use those different events, and you can basically everything except for the actual delivery of the meeting, like today we're using GoToMeeting. Everything that would happen around that event, and all of the marketing, all of the registration, all the landing pages, all the reminders and nag notices are all built within the event management module. So when we go in and look at events, we can actually see a whole series of events, and we can see what it looks like, what are the steps and flow. So if somebody does... Yes. I can hear you.
We seem to have lost your audio.
Oh, I can hear him.
I'm talking now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Eric.
Oh, okay. I lost that audio. I'm sorry. Okay.
So the event marketing module enables you to basically build a nurture marketing campaign around the event. So when you go into the event here, I'm sorry, I thought I had one already built. All of the things that happen around that event, everything from the email campaign that flows through, different calendar links, actions you may take, landing pages, which would be the event registration form, the survey form. You can have people register for different segments or different events within the event. So if it's an actual face-to-face, if there's sessions, you can put those sessions in and let people register in distinct sessions. And also, once people are in that event, you can actually take a roll call and check people in to those events and mark them as attended. So it really does just about everything around the event, except for in the case of like an online event, if you're using GoToMeeting, you would still use that GoToMeeting information and embed that into this event marketing plan.
All right. Well, I think maybe what we'll do, Eric, if you're good with it, is field some of the questions that have come in. Bree, do you have a list of those?
Mm-hmm.
I do. All right. In the beginning of this presentation, Eric, you mentioned the cookies that are embedded when people come to your website if you're using Salesfusion. And one of the questions is, does our website have to use cookies, as some websites do not?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, I think if I'm understanding this right, and if I'm not, please feel free to follow up with this question. and we can get more clarification. But I'm guessing he is wondering if using Salesfusion, if you have to use the cookie as part of it.
Well, the cookie is a function of your browser. The website stores a cookie in your browser. And so I think what the question might be is, what if your website is blocking cookies? And I suppose that's possible. I know that web browsers have the ability to not allow a cookie to be stored. And so I would think the answer, Eric, you can correct me, is if a user has disabled cookies, then the web analytics is not going to get stored.
Mm-hmm. I believe the answer to your question, the way it's asked, is that is correct. Two things happen within Salesfusion. Salesfusion provides to you as a customer some embed code. So in your website, in the header and footer of your core pages, there's some embed code that you put into your landing pages. That's what helps you feed data back into Salesfusion. So when we're looking at this Web Analytics tab, it's telling you visitors, sites, and so forth. So even if it doesn't individualize those people, it's still tracking traffic across your website. If they have cookies blocked, it will still track the visitor. It just won't identify who they are in Saleslogix. So what that does break is this view into the tab. So when you look at the individual and you go look at their individual history, if they have cookies blocked, then obviously you won't be collecting that data about that individual. I would say that I find is more of the exception than the rule. Most people don't have cookies blocked.
Yeah, part of the story too that I'll mention is that its web forensics piece of Salesfusion has to be installed on your website. So there is some code, as Eric mentioned, that has to be put in place, and it's very similar to Google Analytics, which is also a web forensics tool. But all that really does is like track clicks and so forth, where your web forensics engine or Salesfusion is much more sophisticated than that, because if cookies are enabled, it stores their IP address, what their browser is that they're using, and other information about that individual.
Correct.
Any other questions, Bree?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few actually. The next one is, are templates developed and available only in Salesfusion or alone in Saleslogix as well?
Wow, it's funny that you asked that, considering I just navigated to the templates. The answer to your question is there's multiple options. So when you go into the templates, there is a template library. If you're familiar with SwiftPage, you know there's a template library in there. There is one here, and you can select from something crazy like 700 different templates between these different areas of the 2013 templates, landing page templates, Salesfusion templates, and then there's a service called Template Zone that actually gives you even more based on different genres, if you will. That's answer part one. Answer part two is you can go straight in here and create new templates on your own and hit save here. Oh, it wants me to put some description in. And when I go into the actual template builder, there is a WYSIWYG tool in here, the editor, and you can import your own HTML if you have that already. And then a couple interesting things about templates: when you build it, you can build an HTML version, and you can build a simple text version. Under the details, one other quick point is there's some interesting things here. In SwiftPage, you can send on behalf of. You may remember that if you have that tool. Slight variance on that, and actually a slightly more advanced variance on that, is you can affect the from and the reply to. So for example, I can put in here a merge field called ++ SLX user ID email prefix at companyname.com, and then under reply to I could put marketing at companyname.com. So the idea would be, when your receiver of email gets an email, it would look like it came from their account manager, and the reply to can go back to a marketing inbox or something like that, where you all can treat and manage replies, out-of-office replies, and so forth. So there's a number of different things in there. And lastly, go ahead.
Well, the other, you were going to maybe say this, but the merge field is another biggie that we hear about. And so what we looked at earlier was that this is where you can merge Saleslogix fields into your templates.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So when you go to the merge fields, there's some sections down here, and then when you go to the contact level merge fields, it's showing you pretty much all of them, including custom fields you can merge. But you see in here you have account ID or first name, last name, other distinct data fields. So when you do email merges, they can personalize the email content based on the various different attributes that are in Saleslogix. So we've got all the merge fields, and if you choose one, what it does is if you choose like company name here, adjacent to that you'll see ++ company ++. So that's the ++ methodology is how you'll see all of these things, and then you can copy that field. And then when you go back over to the HTML section or the text section, you can paste that, and then you can put that merge field into the text of your template wherever it's appropriate.
Okay. Our next question is, can Salesfusion be used for managing interest subscriptions such as opt-in or opt-outs right back into Saleslogix?
Yeah, it can. That's part of the function of the landing pages. When you build a landing page, you can build those questionnaires, checkboxes, opt-in, opt-out, and all these, basically any other question that you might want to ask somebody. The other thing about landing pages and questionnaires is Salesfusion does have its own database backend. So what you can do is you can actually store survey level data in the Salesfusion tool, and you can go and build those marketing segmentations based on campaign responses, or you can also build the triggers based on campaign responses. So if they say yes, no, or opt out, or different things like that, you can assign triggers to invoke email campaigns based on those answers.
Okay, the next question we might need a little bit of clarification, but I'll throw it out there, see what we can do with it. Does Salesfusion track all of this for every contact in Saleslogix?
Well, the answer is provided that they have an email address, yes. And once they're cookied, yes. The other piece of the puzzle here is segmentations also does have the ability to build exclusion lists. So the way this tool is priced is by how many email addresses you're tracking. So sometimes you can go in and scrub your list down and say, everybody who's marked inactive, drop out of the list. Everybody who doesn't have an email address, drop out of the list. People who have marked themselves unregistered, drop them out of the list. So segmentations can be both proactive or exclusive. You can have them drop names out of the list if you prefer. But otherwise, yes, it does do a full copy of the database, and then we use segmentation to pare down the list.
Okay. Can you drill down on the external links to know what original source brought a customer or lead to your website?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
So a couple things here is when you do the external links section, this will drill through and show you all the external links, the organization name that it came from, what person came from there. So actually it's a level beyond that. It's not just that external link. It's actually if that person gets captured in the database too, who was it that came through that external link? And again, you can also start looking into individual external link performance and figuring out, like in this case, who's the top 10 referring websites, and you can start making sense of things like SEO and what's working.
Okay. Our next question is there a limit to how many segmentations you are allowed at one time?
Well, it's much like groups. There's a sanity point, but at the same time, no, you can make as many segmentations as you want. And when you build a marketing campaign, you can assign, like you can do with targets in campaign module, when you build a marketing campaign, you can assign multiple segmentations to a marketing campaign.
Okay. Our next one is, how can you associate non-Saleslogix website visitors with a later individual as the URL is not specific to a user, just the URL, unless you're matching with the cookie? Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
What they're doing is there's actually an IP address that is tracked of that individual visitor. So what happens is it tracks that IP address, and if they fill out a form subsequently or in the future, it does match that. And if it matches previous visits, then it does sync up that previous to being cookied history. I hope that's the answer you're looking for.
I think that sounds about right.
Doesn't it too, Eric, it knows the IP range of certain companies, so if I visit a vendor's website, for example, they might not know my personal IP address, but they know my IP falls within a range that's owned by Customer FX?
I believe that's how the technology works. I can't swear to answer it definitively now.
Yeah, that's what I've been told is how it does it. So it doesn't know it's me and my machine, but it knows I am with Customer FX, or somebody from Customer FX hit our site.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, there are times that you get emails come in, or excuse me, traffic come in, and it'll say someone came to the website from Customer FX, but it doesn't know who you are. So again, it just has that IP address and that origination URL. Where did you come from?
And does it store that web information at the account level then until the contact is discovered?
Not until that individual machine is cookied, no.
Okay.
Okay. Our next question is there any compatibility with Swift page templates?
I don't know that I would say compatibility. I would say if you have a plethora of Swift page templates, you can export those or save them as HTML, and then you can, using the import HTML function in the marketing piece under the templates like I showed, you could import all of your existing Swift page templates you've been using.
Okay.
Is that the answer?
I believe so. And then I had somebody asking for a quick overview of the lead routing feature from Salesfusion to Saleslogix.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible today, or?
I don't know that I have it set up to actually show you, but I can explain it. Effectively, what happens with lead routing is the idea is kind of, you could have somebody that you want to, kind of like we use leads and then we use accounts and contacts in Saleslogix. There's some thinking that maybe we don't even want to make them a lead yet. Maybe we want them to qualify through another layer. So the idea behind lead routing is twofold. One, we can build a lead scoring model to a visitor. And then based on their score, we can decide when does that actually go into Saleslogix. So the idea would be we could be tracking people in Salesfusion as visitors, but because their score is so low or their interaction with our website is insignificant, they've not shown value yet. So therefore, we don't have to, by necessity, add them directly to Saleslogix right away. We can send them into a nurture marketing campaign, and based on their interaction with that campaign, we could then move their contact record into Saleslogix then. That's one thing. The other piece is lead routing does have some intelligence built into it of once it does make the jump over to Saleslogix, there are notifications and other alerts that can be triggered. So if you all have rules that can be established onto who gets assigned the lead, those can be employed, or they can be just turned over to marketing, and marketing can then take ownership of them and assign them in Saleslogix to the right representative that should follow up. So there's kind of a couple layers of, couple parallel streams of things happening with leads when they come in.
Okay. And our last question is about pricing. How is it priced? What's affordability like for small businesses?
Well, that's a good question, and let me bring this screen up in just a second. Let me get to it. So Saleslogix, Salesfusion is priced based on number of email addresses you're tracking. So I'd kind of mentioned that before. The starting price for the tool is $9.50 a month. So the way I usually position this is because of there is no limit to how many email things you send, how many email blasts go out on a given month is irrelevant. There is no user license. Everybody gets access to it that has Saleslogix. Also, it's doing all the website traffic tracking, and it's doing social media publishing, it's doing forms, it's doing event management. So what I find is when people look at this price tag, it's not really easily comparable to things like SwiftPage, because SwiftPage is really doing 3 of the 15 things that Salesfusion is capable of doing. So the point I make to people is most of the customers I find that are adopting Salesfusion are abandoning 3 to 4 to 5 different tools because they're using something for surveys and something for emails and something for SEO monitoring and a different tool for custom landing pages and a different tool for social media publishing. And very quickly you realize that you're spending money in 5 to 6 different directions. So the benefit to Salesfusion, as I term it to everybody, is it's one skill set, it's one price point, and it's one place to go for all things marketing, and it's all integrated inside of Saleslogix. So really those are the 4 key points. Is most people are eliminating multiple tool sets, not just something like SwiftPage or Constant Contact. They're eliminating multiple things.
Okay. Well, that is the end of our questions at the moment. As we always say, if you think of anything else later at a later point in time, please feel free to email either Scott or myself. And if you don't have our email addresses, info@customerfx is another place where you can send us your questions regarding this webinar if you think of something later. And we will try our best to get those answered for you. But I think that's it for our questions.